Joining us right now here in Georgetown, Texas, Reverend Dr. William Barber, of course, co-convener, Repairs of the Breach, and also with the Poor People's Campaign. Reverend Barber, glad to have you here. It is I was showing people with the fan. I told them, I said, I play golf in this. I'm used to this stuff, so I came prepared.
Yeah, it's hot in Texas, but it's also hot politically, brother. And I'm telling you, now Roland is the cause of all this junk. He wakes me up at night, Doc, we ought to do this, and we think about it. But in reality, isn't it ironic, Roland, that the same day we have the first hearing on the physical violent insurrection on January the 6th, we're here tonight preparing to march tomorrow to challenge the political insurrection and the policy insurrection that's going on all over this country, where these extremists who've hijacked the Republican Party and Democrats, some of them that joined them, want to hold on to the filibuster, want to block the true John Lewis bill, which is the For the People Act, all of the position, want to block the coming, because it's not been written yet, Voting Rights Restoration Act. And then earlier, they blocked $15 minimum wage, impacting 32 million people, 40% of black people. And now they want to even hurt immigrants. Let me tell you, the people behind us, they are fired up, brother. We actually are being overrun. We had to stop accepting people for the march because of COVID. So what people are doing is they're going to march legs, and then we're going to the Capitol on Saturday. And this march is saying, like Selma did, we have to have federal action. And black folk are saying it, white people are saying it, brown, Asian, native, poor people, even business people with a conscience, gay folk, all are saying, no. This is what we have to do in this moment. And then, lastly, it's a part of our season, a month long of actions. We were in Arizona yesterday, 27 states in almost 40 some odd Senate offices, Democrat and Republican. We had people sitting in, demanding action. And then next Monday after Austin on Saturday, clergy and low-wage workers are coming to D.C. for direct action. We're not playing, brother. And if it doesn't happen by the 6th, we win if it does. If we don't, it intensifies.
I talked to Melanie Campbell, Black women. They're going to have another protest taking place on Thursday in the nation's capital. We're going to be live streaming that event as well. And Reverend Barber, the thing that I keep explaining to our audience is that for the people who say protest doesn't matter, these things don't work. Look, you just had Senator Mark Warner out of Virginia finally come out and say he believed in a narrow ending of the filibuster specifically for voting rights. Yeah. All of these things, the constant pressure, not just on those senators, but also on this White House to get President Biden moving, because the reality is Vice President Kamala Harris and or Vice President Joe Biden should be in Texas, should have come to Texas. You got to go where the people are, what the problem is, as opposed to, giving nice speeches. No, you got to mobilize and organize your people.
Right, and you got to show in this moment, this is James Crow Esquire. It's not just Jim Crow. Don't let the Republicans get away with this being a binary issue, just black or white. It is race now. Don't ever suppress race. But the racial piece of it also has collateral damage. And then the other thing, I hope to meet with, I got a word about meeting with the vice president and some clergy next week. But here's the thing. We have to have federal action. We have to stand strong. If we go in compromising, you're going to get worse. You got to stand strong. Secondly, we've got to say, you're right, to the president, come to Texas and talk to this diverse group. Come to Arizona. Go to West Virginia. You got people that voted for you there. And then go to the well of the Congress, just like LBJ did, and say you cannot fix physical infrastructure while you're letting people destroy the infrastructure of the democracy. It's both and, it's not either or. And we don't need to play the either or game. This is too serious. We need to have people come together. And then we got to connect the voting rights to economic justice and the economic prosperity of the country. A brother was just telling me from Methodist Church, I preached for him Sunday. And he said, Bob, we got to let these folk know. When we say pass voting rights, stop suppressing the vote, pass 15, he said, let them know. Those of y'all that are fighting 15, don't you know that it's economically insane to do that? If we had 15 right now, 32 million people would be raised out of poverty, $380-some billion would be pumped into the economy right now. But because of the filibuster, you can't get passage on the voting rights, passage on the For the People's Act, or passage on 15, or even protecting our immigrant brothers and sisters. This is a moment, I call it a cosmic moment, that can have international impact. If we keep retrogressing, now I'm going to go Bible on you for your order. The Bible says only a dog returns to his vomit. Every time we go backwards, we go backwards, we go backwards, we go a little far and go backwards. The Bible says that's like a dog returning to vomit. We've got to stop to returning to the vomit of racism and suppression and economic injustice and decide to go forward to the good food and the good prosperity of justice for all people.
And the thing that, what I keep telling the folks, the reason you have to link the voting issue with policy, because that's how you get policy.
Yeah.
If you lay out all the things that Republicans have blocked in this state,
right,
what they're blocking in other states, what they're blocking in Washington, D.C., you cannot say, I want to march. Just like I want to march on an issue, but then not realize public policy is involved. Right. I said on my show last week, to every white person who was out in the streets demanding justice for George Floyd, where you at?
Got to come now.
You can't just last year.
Right.
Last year was last year.
That's right.
Now, where are you marching for the George Floyd Justice Act? Where are you marching for? All
climate,
of this
climate,
is,
LGBTQ. Right. You got to get in because, as you said, Roland, the voting is the bridge to progressive policies. So if you build bridges for infrastructure, but then you undermine the bridge of democracy, you cut off the bridge that gives us the public policy. And you got to recognize the same folk, for instance, in Texas, that wouldn't fix the utility grid are the same folk blocking voting rights. Same folk that block living wage, block health care, blocking voting rights. Make the connect. Same people that come after the LGBT community are the same people that are going after voting. 56 million people in the last election used the kind of voting laws they are trying to take away from. I don't know if people get that. We're not talking about folk trying to block new laws. They're trying to retrogress what's already on the books. And that ought to be disturbing to all of us. So we need and I like what you said about Melanie. We ain't got to all be under the same banner. This needs to be a movement. Get into battle.
Right.
You ain't got to get permission.
You have folks here who in Georgetown are going to be marching to Austin, taking place on Saturday. You got the black women who are doing their thing, the mass action in Thursday. You should have groups in West Virginia doing their thing. You should have people in Arizona doing their thing. You should have people in Connecticut saying to Chris Coons, people in Delaware doing their thing. It's not about getting permission. I've been saying to all different groups who went to the White House, NAACP, Derek Johnson, same thing. How are you taking your chapters? Mark Morial, National Urban League, how are you taking your chapters? Reverend Sharpton, National Action Network, how are you taking your chapters? You don't have to, if you all of a sudden every day they're seeing here and here and here and here. The same thing Black Lives Matter did when you had folks who weren't even affiliated with the people who created Black Lives Matter, but they said we can do something ourselves.
And the difference this time is this, for instance, if you're white or otherwise, you don't have to be altruistic. This is not about you helping black folk. They're getting ready to take your democracy.
Right. First of all, there was a county clerk in 2012 who admitted that she moved an early voting location off of a college campus because they were voting. Too many of the old young folks, white folks, were voting Democrat.
That's right.
Moved it to a way out place with a small parking lot hard to get to. They moved from early voting locations in North Carolina. I was on a CBC panel, and it was Shirley Ifill, Christian Clark, Vanita Gupta, the guy who was the Secretary of State in California. I said, y'all have got to challenge white folks to say, hey, this ain't just us. They don't like tech. And here in Texas, I'm still registered here. They are mad. They've been getting their butts kicked in the suburbs.
That's right.
Because Georgetown, folks, everybody who's watching, Georgetown is a suburb of Austin. Austin is Travis County. This is Williamson County. In Houston's Harris County, Dallas County, San Antonio, Bexar County. They've been losing in the suburbs. That's what they're trying to stop.
Even though in Georgetown 30 years ago, in the 1930s, the first successful case against the Ku Klux Klan happened in Georgetown when a white woman stood up. So my point is we need everybody, brother. And what I'd like to do, I hope we can do it as the march goes on. I want to come on one evening and you and I just read the For the People's Act. Because I think most of our people don't know.
Right.
And I'm going to say this to all groups, civil rights. Don't you go in those places and compromise with Manchin and let him say, well, I'll support the Voting Rights Act, but I'm not for it. And you said,
right,
well,
the John
that's
Lewis
good.
Act.
Yeah,
Not
the hell with that. Because first of all, ain't no Lewis Voting Rights Act. It hadn't been written. That's the truth. Second of all, the John Lewis Act is the act, the For the People's Act. He wrote that.
Right.
Okay. Thirdly, the Voting Rights Act won't fix this because these bills are passed. You cannot retrogressively pre-clear. Secondly, thirdly, fourthly, if you pass the For the People's Act, everything they're doing in these state colleges becomes illegal immediately. So we don't need no. And plus, he signed to say he would support the For the People's Act. Joe Manchin signed it, but he signed it when McConnell was majority leader. Right. Because he knew it wouldn't come to the floor. He ran on it in his state. So did Kristen. I'm going to tell it all. I'm sorry. Kristen Sinema said she would support it when she was running. She said she would support 15. Manchin never said he was against 15 while he was running because he knew if he'd have said it in the primaries, the Democratic challengers would have whooped him. He waited until afterwards. And after Warnock and our brother from
John Ossoff
won, running on For the People's Act, running on voting rights, running on liberation. He waited until they got a majority, and then all of a sudden, now he's not for it. Don't let these folk play game, and don't go in a room and cut a deal. That, well, we won the Voting Rights Act. If we don't win this For the People's Act right now, every bill that goes in place, you won't be able to undo it. You can't litigate out of this. You can't mobilize.
It. I mean, because it is going to have, look, what they're doing by trying to cut drastically the drop box ballots.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do with matching signatures. I mean, they are, and the ability to be able to overturn election results. This is by design. This is all about Donald Trump complaining about losing, even in the state that he won. They are trying, and what I also keep trying to tell people, this is not about presidential politics. This impacts every single election, school board, city council, county commissioners, state reps, state senate, governors, all of these races, water district. If it's an elected position, DA as well, that's why people have to recognize we ain't playing games with this.
And it's about fundamental, as you say all the time, power. These folk are wanting blatant power. They see the demographic shifting. They know the South is really not red. It's suppressed and unorganized. They know that, and many of these other places. So they see the demographic shifting. They want to control the power. And lastly, this is about the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Why is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce celebrating Manchin and Sinema and the Republicans? Because they don't want expanded votes, because they know that undercuts their ability to control elected officials that can then pass tax policies and other policies that fill their pockets. And so if you're in an organization, and even if you've had conversations with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, you got to cut ties. You got to cut ties. Because either you're on the side of, you're going to treat corporations like people and people like things, or people like people and corporations like things. That's why for instance, Jeff Bezos did something last year. I'm going to tell on him. On July 1st, he said, I'm going to give $10 million to a certain social justice organization, which is no money for him. On the next day, the 3rd of July, he cut all of the pay for his workers, the pay that they were getting because of COVID. We cannot let the corporate interests have more power than the power of people. 80% of Americans want this. Do you know in that For the People's Act, it says a president must show his tax returns? And so we know. It says that early voting, same-day registration are all law. It says that you cannot change a precinct without giving 7-day notice. That's just, we're going to talk through it.
Right.
But the point is, brothers and sisters, this is not a time for capitulation, and any compromise in this moment is capitulation and allowing the forces that win that have no concern for us. Lastly, if you're going to do infrastructure, do what Lyndon Baines Johnson did. He used to tell folk, you don't vote with me, you don't get no money.
Right.
You don't vote for me, you don't get no money. And people are saying, well, you know, if we just get this now, we can get this later. We're going to be in the midterm soon.
And here's the whole deal. Biden, you ain't getting Republican votes.
No.
Okay, this whole deal, I think I can pick up, this Democrats been trying to get that Republican suburban white woman for the last umpteen elections. You ain't getting them. What you can,
not this group of Republicans.
What you can turn out, you could turn out more black people, more Latinos,
that's right.
More young people. You could turn out
and
more
poor
women.
Folk.
And poor
because
folk,
55% of poor and low-wealth people voted for Biden-Harris. That never happened before. But it's because he said living wage 15. And see, there's a shifting happening, but the politics is rooted in the old. This is not the Eric Derrickerson Republican that came over with Lyndon Baines Johnson, who Lyndon Baines gave the first pen when he signed the Voting Rights Act. No, this is an extremist group of folk that have hijacked the Republican Party. They are trying to put the hopes and dreams of the Southern strategy into law. This is a political insurrection. January 6th was a physical insurrection. This is the political, this is the insurrection.
Right. Right.
Politically. And they are weaponizing policy.
They couldn't get what they want on January 6th.
Exactly.
So then they're doing this.
And they're weaponizing the filibuster like never before. And everybody in this democracy better stand up and stand up. In fact, Reverend Jackson and I and some others, I was talking to a lot of people today. They said, you know what? We ought to support whatever happens on the 28th. And then we ought to say, but if you can't get there, every state, you need to be marching on your capital.
Yeah.
In
fact, I have long said, y'all, I appreciate August 28th. I said, but if you mobilize in multiple states, you're going to have more people participating.
As I told folk, I'm supporting everybody trying to do right. But I do know in 1963, see, I was born 2 days after the March on Washington. My dad used to tell me the story. Because they said I was supposed to be born on the 28th. My mama went into labor, and I said, hold up. Let's see what happened. And my daddy said, I went to the other marches. He didn't go to 28 because he was waiting for me. But he always reminded me, Bob, Billy, that's what he called me, Billy. Don't y'all call me that. That's what he called me, Billy. He said, listen, nobody came to March on Washington to hear Dr. King speak. That wasn't the purpose. They were mobilizing, and Dr. King said, go back to Alabama, go back to Mississippi. Yep. But he said also why it happened, because it was between Birmingham activism, Mississippi activism, then Freedom Summer followed. But on that day, that week, there were more than 200 actions in 200 cities. Lawson, who was one of King's main supporters, was in jail.
James Lawson.
He was in jail in Louisiana. Jesse was in jail in Greensboro. That's what was happening. Diane Nash was in Selma planning. So, Lord, y'all, it's not all of us coming under one banner.
Right.
I support everybody that's doing everything, but we got to do a whole lot of a lot to push what needs to happen in this moment.
All right, Reverend Dr. William Barber, we appreciate it. We're going to be live streaming the march. It's taking place beginning at 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. So as they walk in, we'll be live streaming. Come on, you can come around. Beto, come on over. So that'll be happening. And then, of course, we'll be there Saturday as well. So, because, look, I told you when we talked, we were going to be here because we got to have media driving this message out because, you know, there are a few local cameras here. Everybody watching. CNN not here. MSNBC not here. They might be here Saturday, but this is the stuff that has to be getting out constantly.
Got to get out constantly. Thank you so much,
Roland.
And look, I'm going to give you your flyer, your fan from Ghana back till tomorrow.
I got 4 of them, so I have one
borrow
for
one
you.
tomorrow.
I have one for you.
Get some spray on this for Beto. You know we're trying to be COVID safe. Who got some spray real quick?
Let's get some spray. Beto O'Rourke is going to step over. He has been one of the folks involved in the planning of this as well. And so we certainly,
You know, we got this thing. The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Right.
Prepare people for other things. So, like, if he had got elected, he couldn't march with us because we know in the Poor People's Campaign, we don't let elected officials come on. Democrat or Republican, that undercuts the moral argument. They say it's partisan. But he didn't. I don't know what God is planning. But for right now in this season, he's free.
Right.
And so we're so glad to have this brother.
He could be playing a gubernatorial matchup.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to leave that alone.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just 1 moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.